What's up YouTube, and welcome back to another Procreate tutorial where today we're going to go ahead and create another autumnal themed landscape, kind of following suit with all the sort of styles that I've been doing recently. Now, as always, you're going to want to grab all the requirements for today's design. That is the canvas size, the palette, and also the guide, but there's also one additional brush, which is a modification of the elphinstone brush, which will allow you to create these kind of leaf-like shapes up here in the trees. So that's just like a modified brush that you can grab for free, again using the link in the description down below. It takes you over to my Patreon. We can grab the requirements, and while you're there, check out my Patreon, because that's where I post 3 exclusive tutorials every single month to my Patreon supporters, and with 3 added every single month, that catalog just continues to grow. We're nearly 160 exclusive tutorials that are not available here on YouTube. They're only available on Patreon. Be a bit patient with me. Again, I'm still not quite 100% well yet, and my throat gets a little bit croaky towards the end, but hopefully you enjoy the tutorial nonetheless. So tag me in your finished creations when you're done, and let's get started. So as you can see on my canvas I've created, I've already got the guide in play, and that is easy to add. You just go up to your actions, hit the option of add, and insert it from your photos or files, depending on where you saved it, based on the requirements I've provided. Now, the only other thing I've done then is tapped on the layer, tapped on rename, and then called it guide, just so that you know in your layers to keep hold of it, of course, throughout the whole of the design. So let's go ahead and just start making our way through some of the basic layers, and then we'll tidy them up and style them up as we go. So let's change our background color. Let's go down to the bottom right of the palette and hit the tick. We're then going to go ahead and create a new layer, drag it underneath your guide. Let's go to our colors, and we'll grab the color in the top left of the palette. Grab your brush. Now, I'm constantly using the 5.4 update, so if you're not seeing the new brushes, you have to tap up here, go to tap on brushes, and then go to see your libraries, and then you want to be in the Procreate library, pens and elphinstone. This marker here is set to 32%. If you need to set a marker, you can, for example, drag it anywhere you want. If you tap on it and then hit the plus, you'll get this little marker, so you can jump straight to it. So mine's always set to 32%, and all I'm going to do is just come along this line here, and then I'm going to make sure I make a purposeful sort of slight sort of quick and easy raise up here to create like a, as you can see here, like a bit more of a bush-like shape. So you can drag and drop your color into there. You can grab your eraser. If you hold down on your eraser like I just did, you can then use exactly the same brush, and then maybe you could just sort of let the land dip a little bit more in towards that bush, and then the bush itself can have some space to live. So for example, if I turn off my guide, that's roughly the shape I've gone for. We are going to adjust this shortly. We're going to get all of the layers in first. So let's create a new layer, drag it underneath, go to your colors. You want to be now working with this color here, top of the 5th column. Same brush as before. We're going to go ahead and draw this piece of land in here. So it's going to come along there, and then just sort of very quickly dip down. And if you've done the same as I've done here, you may just need to let it go whoop, down. Just avoid running it into a corner. You should never have a line run into a corner. And then go all the way off to the right, and then drag and drop your color into that space. We're then going to go ahead and create a new layer, drag it underneath. As always, we're just going to get all of those shapes in all the way to the back, then come forward and detail the layers as we go, because then you know where things are laid out. You know not to waste time coloring in certain areas because the detail is not there, because it's hidden. So we're going to go to our colors again. We're going to go now to the top of the 6th column, and we're going to draw in this layer of land here, like this. So I've been doing quite a lot of these autumnal sort of designs lately, so if you're interested, check out the channel. There's loads more autumnal designs on there at the minute, all with a very kind of specific style that I've been really enjoying lately. Now I'm just going to go ahead, I did put a little bump in there, but I'm going to flatten that out. I'm going to keep it simple. Let's then create a new layer, drag it underneath, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you are subscribed, because there's like 75% of people that are not subscribed, but you enjoy the tutorials every single week, so make sure you are. Let's then go to our colors. We're going to go to the top of the 4th column from the right, tapping away. I'm going to draw in this piece of land. Now it's actually technically like 2 pieces, but they're very close to each other. So I'm going to draw this in, and then very quickly just wrap it around and then come across. So I'm going to drag and drop my color into there. I may want to kind of, you know, make that a little bit more interesting with some bumps and lumps, and potentially even kind of round this off a little bit more, so they are technically then a little bit closer together, but you know, just something like that does the trick. And we'll also go ahead, and we need to add in this layer back here too, and we can do that on this, we can do it on the same layer. We'll go ahead and just bring in a piece of land down here, all the way into there, and then boom, in behind. Drag and drop your colour in. Now I've clearly not gone all the way from this end all the way to the right, so I can drag and drop my colour in, and there we go. Now behind there we start to add some trees, so let's create a new layer, drag it underneath, go to your colours, and then we need to add in some really lovely like sort of dark looking trees, and that's going to be this colour here, the bottom of the second column from the right. Brush, now we need to scroll down, we need to go into Creative and the Bacano brush. It's a brush I'm obsessed with at the minute. It's a really cool brush. I'm going to set the brush size to around about 11%, and in behind here we are going to sort of draw in some trees. Now you can go around in like a circular motion to get like your first sort of layers in of the sort of the shaping. Just very simple, like all the way down. Make sure you don't go too low down, so if you tap on your eraser you can just get rid of anything that shows. And then there's a gap here for the stream, so you want to go ahead then and probably set your brush size to the 7% marker, and you can draw in some like tree-like or bush-like shapes, either. It doesn't honestly really matter too much, just as long as you've got some sort of idea of like some hedges essentially, or just natural growth, etc. And trying to just go around in a circular motion. So I've got my brush size set to 7%. That works out quite nicely, and you can get quite particular with it. You can draw in like tree-like shapes if you wish, you know, and then just draw in like a line occasionally pointing down. You could even use the elphinstone if you wish, just to kind of make that a more purposeful kind of tree trunk. And then over here we didn't use the 7%, so I'm just going to make sure I just get in here and create like just growth, you know, just wild growth over here. Maybe one that gets a little bit higher perhaps over here. It can go quite high on this left hand side, so don't worry too much if it's starting to look a little bit, you know, all over. Only thing I would do is just colour in the very bottom here. There you go, with like a little wiggle of colour, and just something like that is just enough to give you the impression. So let's just do that, because it is going to get blurred later on anyway. Now we then want to go ahead and create a new layer and drag it underneath that again. We're going to go to our colours. I'm going to grab this colour here, top of the third column from the right, and then we're going to go to our selection tool, rectangle, and you do want colour fill blue and turned on, so tap on it and turn it blue. That means it's on. And then you just first of all want to kind of align to the horizon there, so it doesn't matter if you go too high, you can drag and drop and let go, and then you can just grab your cursor and use freeform and just bring it down a little bit. Like, you don't want to be too high, so something like that just to start with, and tap on your cursor when you're done. So you can just see I'm just behind the trees, just making sure we know that the water does disappear in behind. But we are going to go ahead and just blur that out anyway, because we're going to go to our brushes. We are going to go to the option of basics, if I can find it, and the Forester brush. Set that size to maybe like a 9 or 10%, perfect. And then we want to just wiggle in very lightly just to start with some colour, just kind of adding in that misty effect already as well, and just making sure there's a little bit of that kind of white misty colour just in behind here. Very, very light. It might even be a bit tricky to see on camera. I can see it's just about visible. We are going to potentially come back to this, so you don't need to do it sort of perfectly now. It's just a matter of just creating like a little bit of a bend, and then just a little bit of white in behind. It's slightly white, isn't it? Slightly yellow. Let's then go ahead and start making our way further back again. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to create a new layer. You're going to drag it underneath the last layer. Go to your colours. We then want to move to this. Well, in fact, we can keep the same colour, bottom of the second column from the right. And then we're going to go to our brush. I'm going to go back up to the pens and elphinstone, and then we are going to just draw in some trees. Now there's two ways you can go about this. You can see this line here, this little squiggle. Now you could go up and down like this and just create like sort of sharp kind of tree-ish like shapes, and that's not a bad idea. The alternative is you just go like, you press really firm and just draw in and just get the tip of the pen. So I'm pressing really lightly and then really firm to kind of draw in like triangles. Now both have their sort of benefits, to be honest with you, so I wouldn't necessarily sort of prefer one perfectly over the other. I just want to give you the option. I always love to give you guys the options to make something your own. So I'm going to zigzag, I think, as you can see. I can start with some sort of very, very basic sort of zigzagging, and then I can always go ahead and just sort of add in more at the end, because it's only meant to be a simple kind of layer. Now, this layer does just sort of sit in the distance over here, so I can go all the way down. I'm drawing as we speak all the way round to over here, and then I'll just reappear again with a little bit of a squiggle, and then I'll drag and drop my colour in. So that's going to be my like distant tree line. Again, you can if you want to be very particular, you know, you could go like horizontal in there and, you know, just add in less of the, you know, make the trees have like branches basically by going like a little bit horizontal. But again, this is going to get blurred later on anyway. So I'm just literally just going left to right, just occasionally add in like a little bit of something that goes a bit horizontal rather than upright. Although you can add in like, you know, some of these points over here have a little bit too much of a sort of rounded top on them. So you can just very quickly, don't want you to overthink this, very quickly, horizontal, little dashes, just to rough up the edges. Sometimes we focus too much on the things in the distance when we've got so much attention that we need to do at the front as well. Now I definitely just want to do that over here where I showed you though how to create them with the brush, just sort of with a bit of pressure. They just get a little bit too, almost, I want to say robotic is the right word, to be honest with you. They get a little bit too very, very minimalistic in a way. So, and you can just make sure that as well, like, you know, you don't have to do all these zigzags. You can just sort of get in there and add in like a little sort of dash or so, another tree in behind perhaps. Now this will tell you if your horizon is sort of fully blurred out. Now it doesn't need to be. You can just about see on mine there's a bit of a line, and I don't mind that at all. So it's up to you. You can sort of erase into there with the Forester brush and add more, but I actually really like that there's a subtle line in there. You can always redo that layer, of course. Let's then go ahead and create a new layer, drag it underneath our tree line. Let's then go to our colors. We want to grab the middle of the second column from the right. And we've got this zigzag line runs all the way down to the bottom right. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to very easily, I'm going to literally just let my pen and my wrist just go crazy with squiggles and wiggles to create just a mess, to be honest with you. And that's fine. I'm just jittering my hand up and down. That's fine. I can let some have like low dips. I can then go back up on myself. And in a minute, we'll just do exactly what we did a second ago, where if we want to, we can get in there and make purposeful adjustments. I'm just going to go all the way off to the right-hand side. As I started all the way on the left-hand side, I can drag and drop my color into that space. And I've got my tree line. And to be honest with you, it's not really a lot of stuff I would do here, to be honest, at this particular stage. Maybe just like an occasional sort of correction here and there. Maybe some, again, horizontal lines just to break up all the vertical kind of up and down shaping, which should just be enough. Again, it's all going to get blurred anyway, not to a huge degree, but, you know, as long as you get the subtle impression of what it's meant to do, that's fine. Now, the next layers are very simple. We create another new layer, drag it underneath, and I will eventually show you how you can save your layers as we go. But for now, we'll go ahead and go to our colors. We want the top of the second column from the right. Very, very simple. We're going to do this line here. So you kind of want to be able to see your canvas on both sides. You can bring it in from the edge. Allow yourself just to slow down though, because you can create some lovely jitters with this brush. So even if your lines are not smooth, that's a good thing, because then you can drag and drop your color in. And if I turn off my guide for you, you can see there's lots of little miniature bumps and lumps, and I love that. We'll then go ahead, create a new layer and drag it underneath. Now, by the way, just if I ever go too fast, go up to the video, tap on the video, go up to the top right up here, go to settings, and then playback speed, and you'll be able to slow me down. You can slow me down by 10, 20, 30%, 90% if I'm really going too fast, but you can find a speed that suits you. Let's then go ahead on this new empty layer. I'm going to go to our colors, top right of the palette, and then we're going to do this mountain in here. Very, very simple today with our sort of background scene all the way off to the left, and then drag and drop your color in. Again, we've got one more new layer to create in terms of the mountain, so drag it underneath. Go to your colors, middle of the far right column, and then we're going to do this mountainous sort of line in the distance. Don't do anything too detailed necessarily back there, because it is so far back, and then all the way off to the right, and drag and drop your color in. Now, let's go ahead and work on the sky, and then we can make our way forward throughout our layers. So let's create a new layer, drag it underneath. We're going to go to our colors and grab the bottom right of the palette. It's the same as the background, so the sky, but we're going to go ahead and change the blend mode from normal to add, and bring the opacity down to around about sort of 35%, just to get us started with. Your brush wants to be set to the basics option of Forester brush. And then you want your size, probably fairly large, 30% looks pretty good. And then towards the right-hand side of our scene, just over here, you're going to go around in a circular motion, probably bigger to be honest with you, 40. I'm going to go around in a circular motion and just want to eventually get this right-hand side looking a little bit brighter. And I say little bit because we've got another layer to add in a second. You just want a very subtle bit of color around here. Then if we go ahead and create a new layer, also change the blend mode from normal to add, and then bring your brush size down, and then just test it down here. Size-wise, that looks pretty good, 7%. I want to create my sun, and I want it just to kind of appear just like there. There we go. So just a little dash. So you've got a slightly brighter little spot just in there, just poking its head up. You could even tuck it a little bit further down, to be honest with you, like in behind. But that's going to make it a bit too shadowy. So I'm just going to move it a bit higher just so we make sure everything is in the light. So you can just about see that on screen. So it's just there. Now that's your sky done. Now you can't pinch them together because they're add layers, so you're going to have to leave them, but we'll make our way forward. We've then got this mountainous layer here. I want to tap on that layer. I want to alpha lock it. I'm going to go ahead and go to my colors and grab the top of the third column now. And it's a third column from the right, should I say. Forester brush still, around about 10%. Let's just drop some mist into the kind of valley-ish shape here. So I'm pressing really lightly just to give it a little bit of character, a little bit of something maybe just in here. And I can let that sort of come round, can't I, in a minute, and let that color just trickle its way through. So a little bit of sort of white in there looks great. You can get a bit more particular if you want, like a 4%, and like add in like slightly higher raised, almost like cloudish shapes, but simple will be fine. Now that layer is completely done with technically now. Now what you can do is you can actually go ahead and tap on it, turn off the alpha lock, go to your adjustments and go to Gaussian blur. And if you swipe from left to right, you can get a 7% Gaussian blur, and that's your furthest mountain done. Tap on your adjustments when you're done. Then this mountain, we kind of repeat the same steps. We tap on that layer. I'm going to set my brush size back up to around about 10%, and then just down in here, I'm going to follow that little bit of mist there that we created, because you can blend out this line almost now with the mist in behind, so much so that it kind of fades down and disappears. And then you can bring in some color on the right. Make sure you bring in some down here as well. It's very subtle, 7%. I'm just going to see if I can wiggle that up that mountain line a bit more. Then a little bit more kind of purposeful with a 4%, kind of just wiggles and squiggles through. It's very subtle. You don't want to add in a lot, but you want to add in enough that we can just get that little bit of atmosphere going. And again, this one also gets blurred. So you can go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur, swipe from left to right and do a 6% on this one, and then tap away. Go to your next layer, which is the next mountainous layer. On that layer, we'll do exactly the same. We'll let that sort of mist over here, probably with again a 7 or 8%. We'll let that mist down here consume kind of the bottom of the line. And then also this is where you can help these trees really pop out, because you can drop some mist in behind them. So you can just let that just come across. There we go. So it comes down, trickles in towards the water. And then you get a little bit of kind of glow in behind here. Very, very subtle glow. There we go. Just in there, just stuck in that kind of little valley almost. Now I'll turn off my guide at this point because I don't think you need it on just for a minute, and you can see things a bit more clearly. Now you can see that beautiful sort of scene coming together. Now on this layer here, we also want to blur this too. So we'll go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur. And then we've done 7, 6, let's do 5. So left to right, 5%. And then tap on your adjustments when you're done. Everything's getting that little bit of soft focus to it as well, which looks great. We then move to our tree line here. Again, similar fashion, we just need to add some mist in front, so you can do it on the same layer. You can get that 10%, and then you can bring that mist in, just very lightly though. And essentially all we're trying to also do is help this layer here in front of it, help it kind of stand out. Now, what you can then also do is help this side over here as well by introducing some mist all the way over here. So it's all wrapping around this potentially like little island almost, but it's very subtle. Don't add in too much. In fact, I've probably done a smidge too much over there. And then again, this layer, we can stay on it. We can go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur, left to right, and we're going to go 4% now. So that's nicely now blurred. And then that sort of nod towards all those trees, it doesn't really matter now, does it? It's nicely blurred out. Now this one, you don't need to add anything to, because we've got the blur coming from the water itself. So on this layer, tap on your adjustments, Gaussian blur, So this is this little set of trees down here, left to right. Now I'm going to put this one at 4% as well, and then tap on my adjustments, because then I've got maybe 3 and 2 that I can work with coming forward. So let's then go ahead and move forward. Now, all of those kind of mountainous areas down here, excluding the kind of add layers down here, you could probably pinch all 5 of them together to save on your layers should you need to. And probably as well including the water, but it's totally up to you. Now we then move forward to these trees as well. Now these trees don't need any attention other than a blur. So we go to our adjustments, Gaussian blur. So from left to right, and I think we can go to about sort of 3 or 2%. I'm just going to go left a little bit. 2% does look pretty good, and we do want a little bit of sharpness, so I'm going to go to 2% and tap on my adjustments. Now we do actually want to add a little bit of mist to it, but now it's blurred, we can just do it in front of it. So we can just go ahead and set the brush size to about 5%. I want to just sort of wiggle in a little bit towards the base, a little bit down there. But then what I want to purposely do is find a gap in the trees, and with like a 3 or 4%, if not slightly smaller, like a 2, just wiggle in like a very low hanging, you can see like a horizontal kind of squiggle, just making its way through into the trees. I love that low hanging look to it. So it's like a line just coming through. Again, we'll just wiggle in some very subtle bits of it there, and then maybe try and mimic that a little bit over here, maybe like a horizontal line or 2, just to kind of make it look a little bit different to the opposite side. So maybe those horizontal lines just come in from here, they connect, and then there's a little bit of a light wiggle towards the bottom. So you've got 2 on that side and 1 on that, just enough to break it up. Now let's go ahead and move to the layer in front. This is where we start to work on our first pieces of land. So we'll create a new layer and tap on it and clipping mask it, just temporarily anyway. We'll go to our colors. You want to grab the color here, so it's in the middle of the 4th column from the right. Your brush wants to be set to the Biceno brush again. So now you should be able to go up to recent at the top and use the Biceno because we've already used it. And then probably a 7% brush size, I would imagine, because it's quite far back. Now with this brush, if you draw multiple streaks, you're going to get a lot of texture like this, where you get this kind of pebbling. But look at the difference if I undo that and then I draw and just keep drawing one streak. Look how much kind of smudging we get here. And I'm pressing so lightly, so you get a much softer approach. Now, that's the approach I want you to use for these distant pieces of land here. So we're going to go sort of left to right and just try and sort of add in colour and leave gaps, but one continuous layer will look absolutely fantastic because it will allow the smudging of the brush to happen, but you won't get it absolutely everywhere, and that's fine. Just like a subtle bit of a nod to some colour on the top of the land, and go back in and add some purposeful bits if you want to, but you know, I think the smudging looks absolutely fantastic, so if you can replicate that, that'll look great. And then I'm purposely kind of leaving it a little bit towards the shoreline here, where I want just like the edge to be a little bit kind of a little bit darker. Now I've just added in a purposeful hard bit of colour just so I've got a kind of good bit of separation between them. And then we have to just replicate that over on this left hand side as well. So you just do exactly the same, except you've got 2 kind of hills. So you've got like this one here, which you can kind of start to draw in and swoop down towards if you wish. And again, one continuous motion if possible, and just lines all flowing down towards the water. And then at some point just change your angle and get a little bit more kind of aggressive, pointing it downwards, just so that you can show the flow of the land. And then again, back here, I'm going to do exactly the same. I've let go, of course, and then I'm going to, again, little bits kind of sharp angular lines down will sort of show steepness. And then you can leave a gap between, or you can start to connect them, especially back here. Like maybe they do, as they get to the highest point, raise and connect into one another. But that should literally be all you need to add back here. Now, we will add some mist as well to this. We are going to go ahead, though, and create a new layer, tap on it and clipping mask it. Then go to your colours and grab the top of the 3rd column from the right. Brush, Recents, Forester. Size nice and small, probably around about 2 to 3%. Little wiggle of colour here. You want to just really soften up this edge here. I'm just going to go along it horizontally, but also vertically as well, just to try and soften it at some random points. You can be a bit firmer and maybe even drag some mist up the hill. Again, I want to sort of blend out the end over here. I just want this to edge here with a 3%, just have a very subtle amount of it. I don't want it to be too much because I still want this to be fairly sharp over here. But this one over in the distance, you could probably just tuck that away even more, like let that kind of just blend and melt into the water. Now, that's that distant pieces of land done. You can pinch those 3 layers together if you wish as well, so they're all on one layer. Let's go forward. We'll do the reflections later. Let's work on this piece of land here. So again, create a new layer, tap on it and clipping mask it. I only create a clipped layer because if I want to lower the opacity afterwards, I've got the full option to do so. So that's why I do it. So I've got a little bit more tweaking I can do before I pinch the layers together. Let's then go to our colours. We've got a couple of colours for this piece of land. So we've got the middle colour first of all in the middle of the 6th column. Brush by Cheno. You could probably make it a bit bigger, like a 12% now. And then again, similar fashion, you just want to kind of draw in and then also like, you know, let that smudging happen, like sort of rolling bits of colour along the land, connect them where you think is applicable, a little bit brighter perhaps on the top edge. And then again, once you get to kind of a point, you can then start to do those vertical kind of land lines pointing like a little bit more downwards, just towards the edge of the land. I'm going to add in a little trickle of colour just on the top edge up there as well. There we go. So we've got some nice sort of shaping in there. I'm going to go 14%, just a little bit bigger, and just add in a bit more colour because we've got 2 colours we can add in this layer. So I can just make sure the top edge has got some good like surface colour. There we go, a little bit more. And then I'm going to go to my colours. I'm going to grab the bottom of the same column, bottom of that 6th column. Similar fashion, except now you're just kind of prioritizing the light on the top edges pretty much. So you could probably go a bit smaller again, maybe down to like an 11 or 12. In fact, I could probably go down to a 7, to be honest with you, just so I can focus the color on some of the top edges, up and down with your sort of pen if you want to, you know, like wiggle your pen up and down to create some, you know, kind of like grassy kind of texture. Because if you go like this upwards, you get like the flow. And it's very short travel. I'm not letting the brush travel too far. I'm not going like up and down like this. You want to have those little short little bursts throughout the whole of the piece of land. You can do it like in random little locations, but that might give you a more textured look to it and a bit more like a grassy plain, which is kind of what we want at the end of the day. So a little something like that. And then just get in there and just see if you can add in any more kind of those vertical lines running down, but not too many. Now, I'm really happy with that. I think that's got a nice little bit of texture to it. I could probably smooth out a little bit of it, to be honest with you. You know, just soften up some of the bottom edges of those vertical lines. But I don't want them to be too soft. So in fact, I'm going to undo that. I can always come back to it. Now we're going to work on this layer here. Now we're going to go ahead and pinch those 2 layers together that we were just working on. Again, we'll do the reflections later. We'll go ahead and then move forward. Now this layer here, we actually just need to make a quick adjustment to, because this layer is currently one just shape. We want to go to our colors. You want to grab the same color, so top of the 5th column. Your brush wants to be set to the Elphinstone. And then you want to go to your layer here. And we just need to, very lightly, probably with 32%, if not smaller, just grass it up a bit. You know, rough up the edge here. Now, you may want to go slightly smaller with your brush size if you struggle with pressure sensitivity, but I just want to make sure that this edge here is completely like uneven. I don't want it to have too much of a, you know, purposeful kind of, I always use the monoline and it gets a little bit of stick from me, but for me saying that really, but I don't want it to have that real solid look to it. There we go. Let's just keep going all the way down. And then as you get kind of lower, you can let those kind of grasses either go a little bit more horizontal or, you know, have occasionally some that are a little bit more flicked up. I mean, to be honest with you, like I've just done a little bit of variation will look fantastic. And by all means, drop your brush size to like an 8% so you can get in there with some potentially like much needed, like smaller, much thinner details. And sometimes you can just get away with a little scribble, to be honest with you, because that's all we need to do is to just rough that edge up a little bit. Maybe up here we could get away with some slightly longer ones. Don't want to go too big because we're going to do this at the front as well, so in this front layer, so you don't want to go too big up here because then you are kind of losing the illusion of things getting smaller, of course. So let's go then to this layer. I'm going to tap on it, create a new layer, and then tap on that and clip in mask it. I'm going to go to my colors and grab the middle of the 5th column. Let's go to our brush again, and by channel, probably I'm going to go to the 20% marker because it's a fairly large piece of land, and we can keep this one fairly simple to a degree. You know, we can draw in some land here, then light little bit of smudging towards the bottom. I can create like grooves and flow and rolling color, and leaving the base color to come through in certain spots is your shadows, so you end up creating like bits of texture. You can then do that 7% and also like do some purposeful like little, you know, pushed upward lining. It's not really coming through too well because we've done quite a lot of that color, but that looks pretty good. I think the only thing I'd probably do is just lose a little bit of this kind of shadowing in there. There we go, that looks much better. There we go. Let's then go to our colors. Let's grab the bottom of the same column, and this one's a little bit brighter. Focus it again more towards that top edge if you can. 13%, just a little bit of a wiggle and a smudge, and you know, get along this line here. Just, you definitely want to brighten it up, so feel free to press really, really firm, and then, you know, again, find like a patch if you want, little kind of bit of vertical kind of wiggling and patching, because then that will kind of tie in the style with that layer in behind that we did by making it kind of go up and down. And I'm also going to definitely brighten up down here. Lovely. And yeah, a little bit of vertical kind of wobbling here and there just gives you enough detail. I've gone down to 7% here, where it kind of ties in with that layer in behind, so you end up with like a consistent style throughout the whole of the scene. And some randomness is great. It just makes life look a little bit more realistic, you know, gives it a better look. I'm going to blend that out, and little patches of unevenness. You could always go back to your base color if you really wanted to, that dark brown underneath, and add some more, but that's going to be fine for now. Let's go ahead and move forward. So let's go to our layers. You can pinch them two together. Let's then go to our front layer. Now the first thing I want to do on this front layer is go to the color, which is top left of the palette, brush, Pachano, and then maybe 7 or 11%, something like that. I'm going to go along the edge. I'm going to press quite firm because I want to just rough that up. I'm going to go 7%. And just like basically we did with the grass, because the Pachano is... because we're a bit closer now, we can use the Pachano and like potentially even get some more detail by doing so. But I want you just to kind of rough this up along this edge, just giving yourself some much needed like natural unevenness. There we go. Should just give you a much better shape to this area. This area, especially over here as well, you want to probably set your brush size to something like 16% and start pushing up and outwards, because this is going to be a bush on this side here. So I want to make sure it definitely has a bit more of a leafy aesthetic to the 7% that we used on the edge here for kind of grasses. So that's just going to rough it up enough that we've got something to work with. Now we do actually need to also add in our tree. If we go to our guide and we turn it on, you can see the tree on the left hand side. So let's do that. Let's create a new layer in front of the land. Let's go to our colors, and we want this color here, top of the 4th column. Your brush wants to be set to the Elphinstone again, 32% size, as I currently always do. And then we're going to go ahead and draw in the tree. Now you don't have to follow this kind of guide perfectly. I mean, I think I might even sort of point it upwards a little bit more than perhaps I did in the pre-practices. So I've drawn 2 parallel lines together. I can just connect them together, and then I can draw in the tree root down here. Now, if you're struggling, just go ahead and tap on that layer below and just tone it down with its opacity. That way you can see your tree root, and you can bring that in. And then I want you to be really like fun and have some fun with the root going all the way down into here. So your beautiful tree root, lovely, thicken that up like so. And then of course, as it gets in towards the tree trunk, you may want to sort of draw in another one like a little bit lower, but you ultimately need to sort of really sort of draw a line essentially across the bottom to say that's the bottom of the tree as it sinks into the ground, and then these roots just run off on their own accord. So a little something like that. I'm going to connect that together. I'm going to make that a bit chunkier. And then maybe like a very small one at the base down here. And tree roots can honestly be like really jittery lines because they are, you know, very, you know, all over the place. So just a little something like that, to be honest. And if you don't like it, hold down on your eraser. You can just chop away into it. we're going to lose a little bit of your root lines anyway, because they're going to get consumed by like the grasses. So if I go back to my brush, I'm going to drag and drop the color into there. So I've got my tree trunk, and again, maybe I can make that a bit bigger, and then maybe even just kind of take it off that way as well. So I've got like perhaps the tree's a bit bigger, but it's slightly off scene. And then we can just go ahead and just sort of draw in some branches all the way across. Now you don't want to make too many branches, and I would urge you just to sort of keep it simple to start with, and then, you know, as you start to sort of see your shape coming together, you can bring a few sort of branches like a little bit lower, perhaps like a little bit down into here, into our scene a bit more, and then you can add some weight to them. And then again, branches, as I always say, overlapping looks the best. Don't keep them flat and boring, please. Overlap them. Let all your little branches, your little twigs on the end just overlap, create a really dense look to the end, because this is the only thing we're drawing autumnal designs is, because the trees technically should have, like, you know, they should be all the leaves falling off, and therefore you would just be left with hundreds, if not thousands, of little tiny branches just running off from your sort of branch, your main branch avenue. So right on the end is where you'd get all of those really thin, tiny little ones, and you've got to kind of draw them in. And all I'm doing is really lightly with my pressure, just drawing in lots of little flicks. As long as you connect them together, honestly, they'll look great. And sometimes you genuinely don't need to connect them together. Like a floating line is just maybe where it gets so thin we can't see it, and then it just appears ever so slightly. And I'm going to get back into here, create some more branch avenues, and just send it all over. Now we are going to cover up some of this with tree leaves in a second, so you don't want to do potentially too much at this stage. I don't want you doing too much and it getting covered up. That's the whole point of how I've done the tutorial, is because we start from back to front, we can see what is and isn't going to get like left in the actual scene and what's going to be visible the whole time. So this particular tree is going to be visible, but the leaves may cover up quite a lot of it. So don't do too much potentially, but you know, have fun. You can decide how much you want to add in, and like where, and does it come from like this side or the bottom of the tree, and everything like that. So yeah, I love drawing trees. I think they're really fun. Also, they're fairly easy as well. Now, let's go ahead then and add in some detail to here as well while we are at it. So let's go ahead and go to our, Joel. Now, while we're working on the tree, let's just carry on. So let's tap below the tree, create a new layer, go to your colors, and we're going to need like a nice orangey tone, like a dark tone to start with. So let's go top left of the palette. Now I have created a variation of the elphinstone. So if we go into pens, now for you it'll be under imported. Now they've put imported at the very top here, so you'd go to imported and find it there. I've provided you with I've called it elphinstone 2, but it's got like a leafy aesthetic to it. So if I set my brush size to 32%, it's pressure sensitive, just like before, and we are behind our lines, but you can flick this in all sorts of directions. And I've been using the elphinstone itself to create leaves. I'm going to go 100% because I can press really lightly, or I can press quite firm. I think if you do enough of this, you should get a lovely scattering. And if you rotate your canvas, you'll also get slightly different angles. Of course, it's autumnal, so you maybe don't want to add in too many leaves throughout your whole of your tree. Yeah, maybe keep it a little bit subtle here and there. You don't want to add too many. Again, most of them should have fallen or are falling. So, you know, just decide how much is too much or how much is the right amount. Something like that looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. Now that is a backdrop color. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to tap on the layer and alpha lock it, so I can't paint outside of it. If we go to our colors, I want to go ahead and start to add in like a little bit more of an orangey tone. So I'm going to go to this one here, top of the second column. I'm just going to, look at this, randomly flick through the whole thing. So basically I'm like giving some leaves a little bit of color, and then I'm giving some leaves, you know, a lot of color. It's just at random by doing it this way, because the brush has got some nice scattering in there. So you should be able to just layer in some like background leaves. I say background leaves because then you need to go in front of the tree and create a new layer. You then want to go to your colors, and then you could start with, for example, the middle of the second column. Keep the same brush. It's sort of really important to maybe think about not overdoing it. You know, you want to look at where you've added in your leaves and maybe think about, okay, can I just add some in front of the branches in order to create that level of depth? So we're going to add in some leaves throughout the whole of the scene, in front of the tree, like over here. Maybe they're just on like a few little twigs or something. Gives it a bit more of a 3D rounding as well. A little bit on the edges. That looks pretty good. I love the autumnal tone because it keeps it nice and minimal. Now again, we're going to go into brighter tones, but you have the option in order to maybe keep this really, really simple and not do too much by just going to, I'm going to go to the top of the, in fact, we'll add the red, sorry. Let's grab the red bottom of the third column. If you go to the layer and tap on it and alpha lock it, you can again just like wiggle your pen all the way through those leaves. So just all over the top of them. Then go to your colors, grab the red again, just beside that. All over that. Then go to your colors. Let's grab the yellowish tone. And I'm probably going to go to my layers and create a new layer, just so I've got the option. And I'm going to add in some more leaves like in here. And these are really bright, of course. So take your time. Feel free to also mix in like the bottom of this column as well, bottom of the second column. These are ones that are a little bit more greeny almost looking, but it's the yellow and oranges that we want to really blow out now. So let's go to the top of the third column. Let's get some of these in here. And I'm trying to somewhat draw on top of the leaves we've already drawn in order to make sure that they are not too, the tree's not too dense. You know, by drawing these leaves on top of here, I can definitely make sure that the we're not adding too much potentially. Now, because we've set it on a separate layer, you can always erase from it should you feel like you have added in too much. I'm going to go to my colors. I'm going to grab the yellow and then add in some of these. And I want my yellows to sit at the very top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back down to a previous layer in just a second. So let's go down to the previous layer. I'm going to tap on it and turn off the alpha lock. I'm going to go to my colors. I want to get some more reds in here. So I'm going to go to the bottom of the third column, get some more reds. Now these reds are a little bit dark, of course. So what we can do is we can go ahead and move to the brighter red. So once I've added in a few more, I'll go to my reds, bottom of that fourth column, and just tuck in our kind of final kind of coloring. This is probably the last layer we'll add for the leaves up here. So just tap in and push in, tap in and push in. Just get some lovely autumnal tones way off onto the left-hand side as well. You know, get them tucked underneath those yellows, just poking their head through. Perhaps, you know, you can add in a bit more. And of course, it's added more and more thickness to the tree, but it's still got a lovely amount of scarcity in there that I think it looks really effective. So you've got some nice autumnal tones blended in throughout the whole of the tree. It just keeps it simple. So now you've done that, you can now colour in your tree and detail it. So if you turn off your guide, if you go to the tree itself and just tap on it and alpha lock it, go to your colours, we can grab the middle of the fourth column. Brush wants to go to recent and Piceno. So with a 7, I think 7% will be pretty good for the tree. We just want to go ahead and go very lightly down it, especially on this edge over here on the right. If you keep your pressure nice and light, you can build up some highlight in here. So again, where do you want the highlight to land? I'm going to go around this top of the root line, and then maybe it just reappears over here as well. Just random bits of texture, a little bit maybe on the top of this one. It's not, I'm not trying to overcomplicate it, to be honest with you. Just then show how the tree flows down. Really, really light. Blend it if you want to as well. Sorry if I just touched the mic. And then a little bit like that, nice and soft. We want lots of shadow in there. Lovely. And you can let that just run up the tree as well. Really, really light. Some little lines here and there. And then you can go through the tree and you can maybe just dance it on some branches, especially up here. And especially on the edges as well. The branch leaves wouldn't, the branches, the little twiggy bits wouldn't be that dark. So by just wiggle some colour all over the edge of them, just on the top edge of some branches, you can just let some light through the tree like so. Now to be honest with you, a lot of this is probably going to get covered up anyway down here, so you don't need to stress about it too much. But now what I will do is I will go back to the base colour, top of the fourth column, 7% maybe, and I could just hack away at some of these lines, you know, bringing in some more shadow, and also like you know, you can thin out some of the lines as well. So let's get in there. There we go. Just kind of darkening that up. Maybe it gets a bit darker in there, in fact. So we will just kind of get rid of the light as it makes its way into that little nook. That looks really cool. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's carry on from there. In fact, the only thing we could do is we could give it a little bit more color, couldn't we? So let's go ahead and go to our colors. Let's go top left of the palette. Let's go to our brush and go to Forester. And then we're just going to set the brush size to like a 26%. And then up here, very light wiggle just to make the tree like a little bit more brown at the top and blend that down. So just very, very lightly. You could even go ahead and maybe go to, say, bottom of the second column, and a little bit lighter maybe on the edges. So we've kind of lost the color we had before, which we did with the Paceno, but you could definitely bring that back in. There we go. That just gives it a little bit more of a warmth to the top. So let's go ahead. Let's go back down to our ground and bring that back up to 100%. We then want to go ahead and tap on our tree and turn off the alpha lock. We want to also, with your leaves, if you're happy in front of the tree, pinch them together. Now this layer here for the tree, just tap on your eraser. You want to use Creative and Paceno, and you want to zoom in, and then just down here with probably a 5-6%, you want to wiggle your pen along the bottom edge to bring in the grass. So you wiggle in your pen and you kind of just tuck in the root line into the ground. There we go. And you can get quite, high into like this little nook here, little groove. There we go. And that should already just give you the impression that it's like tucked away. Looks lovely. So let's then go ahead and work on the ground itself. This is where, of course, we're going to put most of our detail in here. So it's going to take the most amount of time. On this layer, we want to go ahead, and we're probably going to tap on it and alpha lock it. I'm going to go to my colors, and we're just going to load in lots of different colors. So we're going to grab this color here. We're going to grab the middle of the first column. Brush should be set to Paceno. Let's get the size to about 20%, if not slightly larger, to be honest with you. Let's go a bit bigger. Let's go 33. A little wiggle of color throughout the whole of the bottom area here. A little bit softening. Leave it up to the top edge. You don't need to add in very much up there. So a little bit red down there. Then if you grab the color in the bottom left of the palette, you can wiggle that in as well. So like a variation of like colors in here now. Then grab the bottom of the first column, and then just down here, this has got a bit more of a mustardy look to it almost. So just around the base of the tree, we can just load in this mustardy color. Don't add in too much that it overtakes. Bring your size down to 20% perhaps, and wiggle it through over on the right, but try to blend the two kind of spaces together. It's almost like there's two different kind of species of grass almost here. Then go to your colors. Then we need to go ahead and grab some of the reddish tone here, so bottom of the third column. And then we're going to make our way over in towards this bush over here and push up and out. Now, you could probably push down from the edge to start with to get the edge nice and red, and then just in like a spot in your bush, you can go ahead and just add in like a bit more purposeful red. That one was a little bit too heavy. I don't want it to be too bright, but I also definitely want it to have some separation almost from the ground. So it's a little bit more of that red tone in there. So with your kind of base layers in, we can now start to kind of build it up a bit more as well. So let's go to our colors. Let's grab the bottom of the second column. I've got the brush size set to 20% and just a light little wiggle. This one's a little bit lighter for this like bottom area down here. I'm going to just wiggle through, creating that patchiness that we want. Little tufts here and there that are a little bit brighter, that maybe on the opposite side of this tree root. And then again, that kind of blends out. Now don't add in too much in this bottom left-hand corner. We want that to be somewhat a bit sort of darker. Then we're going to move to our colors. Let's move to the top of the second column, and we're going to wiggle in, and we need to kind of start to bring in the oranges like up towards this top edge up here. So we can, blend the yellows together. And honestly, it's a bit of a mashup of colors. So don't overthink it, just like wiggles and squiggles and tufts, and just like you've done in behind, just to kind of layer in a base color. That's all this is. Let's then go ahead and work in a little bit of a brighter tone. Let's go top now of the top of the third column. It's super bright. In fact, we're going to go along the edge of your land there. The edge will be the brightest, so that's fine. It is definitely going to have the brightest tones, but you can then wiggle your pen through here along those edges. You can really bring out the edge of the grass as well by just allowing it to get that little bit of a oomph in brightness. There we go, a little wiggle maybe just on top of the orange just to kind of blend the two, and then maybe like a little bit of a, almost like a pathway here, just like a little bit horizontal, just to kind of show maybe like the route in which people would walk through here. And then I'm going to make sure, of course, it's nice and bright up here. Vicenno's just trying to do all the work for us, just like patchiness and randomness and grunginess almost. And you'll end up with little patches like this, like darker tone. I'd urge you to leave as much of that as possible. There we go. So we've got like a base layer in play. The only thing you may want to do is revert back to like an orange at the top of the second column, and then just break up those goldeny tones that we just brought in with some additional oranges perhaps. Little wiggles, little tufts. There we go. So that should give us a bit of variety. And if you followed my tutorials recently, I'm going to undo that last one. You'll know now we're getting to what I call the detail part, where we're going to go ahead and create a new layer in front. We're going to go to our colors. Now I'm going to put this in front of the tree as well. So let's go up here. We're going to go to our colors and we're going to work in the bottom left of the palette to start with. Your brush wants to be set to Elphinstone again, the regular one. And then we're just going to create flicks and flicks and flicks. Lots of flicks, lots of grasses, lots of like wild planting. Now, sometimes you may not see this because of your colors, but sometimes you will see it like over here where it's like very, very close to your background color. And that's exactly what we want. So we want to kind of flick up lots of grasses, lots of wildness, bury this root in here. You know, down in your very dark tones in the bottom left, you can add in some here, but again, we want to make sure that the bottom left area is a little bit darker, like the light isn't quite getting to it. You know, lots and lots of little flicks, and then you can like draw like a longer one, and then you can also like tap with the brush to create like little leaves or little sort of flowering or anything that you think is part of the scene. That's fine, however you want to describe it, honestly. And then you can also kind of create like little leaves, like little blades of like a plant of some sort. Now again, it's not always going to be visible, but like little flicks by using a little bit more pressure, and that looks really fun. Adds in another whole new dimension to it. You know, little flicks here and there. And we're going to stay in this corner because we're going to go to our colors. We're going to grab the bottom of the second column, and then we're going to add in some brighter ones. Now, of course, these ones are going to get super bright. So let's maybe find a middle ground. Let's grab the middle of the second column and work that in first. So these ones are a bit more orangey, and we can work these in this corner here. Not a lot. I don't want to do too much of this orange tone. I'm going to zoom out, just triple check its level of kind of brightness, and then bring in lots and lots of little grassy flicks. You can go up some of your previous ones. You can also just tap to, you know, bring out the leaves of them if you wish. This bottom corner here, I'm going to leave quite a bit because I want it to be quite dark. I'm just going to keep flicking the pen, create some orange tones in there. Then I'm going to change it. We're going to go to the bottom again of that second column. And these ones are going to be our kind of like final-ish colors over here. So again, I'm going to create like blades sticking out. You can bring the opacity down. You can bring it down, which will give you a much softer look to the pen. It gets a really faint looking approach. So I'd maybe start off with this lighter version. I've brought it down to like a 60%. And again, with just lots and lots of flicks, you can create like little leaves. Again, like just, it doesn't need to, this is what I've been saying recently, like you don't need to sort of tell me this is a type of plant, or I don't need to tell you, in fact, it's a type of plant. It's just natural growths, you know, like little flicks, little grasses, little wild planting, wild flowering even, you know, all of that just to kind of give you that lovely level of detail and wildness. That's exactly what I want. So lots of little flicks in here, and then again, just tap a few times just to create, you know, plants and flowers and leaves, you know, create leaves coming off certain ones, perhaps. Find your level of detail that you're happy with. And you can always go back to the dark tone that we did a second ago and finish this off, which is exactly what we'll do in just a second. I'm going to draw in some more grasses, again, to kind of bury it in here. And this is my style at the minute. I'm really enjoying it. So check the channel out for some more of these kind of sort of vibe. And I'm going to do a couple of little flicks just running off. because then I can use that in a minute to kind of blend these two worlds together, like these two sort of phases, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So with that done, I'm going to go back to my colours. I'm going to grab the bottom left of the palette, grab those dark tones. In fact, you could probably even go top left of the palette and get some variation in the dark tones. And if you like chuck in a few dark blades in behind, so I'm going to go maximum opacity, you know, chuck in some dark blades in behind, you can just get that real level of depth to it. You know, the brightest ones technically will be on the opposite side to us, and the darkest parts will be right here. And again, little flicks, little dashes, little plants over here, like hidden in the corner, berries, that tree. And we don't need to do too much. And then lots of little flick ups. And again, it's just like you're burying the leaves and by using the dark tone at the very end. Lots of little flicks. Lots of little grassy flicks. Now, apologies if it's not the easiest to view, because this is quite a dark corner. All of the colours are quite soft and not too kind of aggressive, but that's what we're aiming for at this particular stage. Now, of course, you need to go back and grab the bottom of the second column again and go maximum opacity, and then just add in your real brightest spots if you want to. So they're a little bit brighter, it'll give you that variation again. And again, run up some of those with like some little sort of leaves, petals, etc. Introduce a new one. There we go. Awesome. Lovely stuff. Cool. Let's move over to the right hand side and basically copy the kind of aesthetic all the way over here. Now, just for that, we are going to create a separate layer, just so it's all separated. We can nicely sort of decide what we want to do with things. So on this new layer, we're going to go to our colors and go top left of the palette again. And then in this darker corner down here, it's about adding in a lot of flicks. So, you know, wild grassing, especially coming from like your shadowy spots, will look fantastic. Like it just emerges from that little dark spot there on top of your highlights. And again, we are going to make our way through the entirety of this whole area over here with lots and lots of detail. Lots of plants, like lots of little petal leaves, etc. And even if you don't have a dark spot to add it in, you can always tuck some shadowy like blades in here, in and around. So I hope you're enjoying the tutorial. As always, please subscribe and also make sure to share your work with me, like on Instagram and Facebook. I love seeing your finished work. It's awesome. I love seeing how you go about it, how you change things, how you invent your world. It looks great. And you've all been really enjoying, by the looks of it, the latest tutorial style, like this style. So yeah, it's really, really happy that everybody seems to have a good reception to it. Just enjoying it. Now, over in this bottom right corner, I'm going to, especially down here in the very, very bottom right, I'm going to press really firm and create like real wide, huge bits of, you know, coming in from the very bottom of our scene here. There we go. Now, from there, we just need to keep layering in lots of these kind of colors here. So we could go ahead and jump to, say, the middle of the first column. Nice sort of a browny orangey tone. And again, lots and lots of little flicks. And you can pick them out. You can put them on top of your yellows. You can pick them on top of your dark tones. We're going to do exactly the same process. Of course, I've introduced like this kind of like path in here. So I'm going to try and like leave that. Maybe we'll even try and detail that in a second. I didn't do that in my pre-practices, but it looked like it works very well for here. So I'm going to keep it in here. And let's try and add in some, you know, grassy areas here in the gaps. And again, you don't have to do absolutely everywhere because the Paceno and the texture of it and the roughness, these are just like the blades just sticking up enough that they give you that little bit of detail. And you're not clipped either, so you can go all the way off the top of the little piece of land as well. You know, add some in there. Don't forget, you want to add in those you want to add in those little taps for like leaves and plants, and you can add in leaves, don't forget, as well, like, you know, fairly large kind of like pour outs, almost like this, like little flick outs. You can add them throughout. You know, you can add in like little plants in there. I don't want to add in too many of those, like little new kind of leaf style, but it's a new addition to this kind of style that I have been introducing. Let's then go back to our colors. We can then move into, we can grab the middle of the second column. This one's, again, slightly brighter, but you want that level of like thickness and density and, you know, all round tons of detail. You can go on top of some of your leaves and introduce new leaves, you know, that are, you know, like a one that's slightly higher. So therefore it's getting some brightness upgrade. and from the sun. Little flicks throughout the whole of this. It's just super kind of very grungy almost as well. And you can add some, you know, slightly bigger, brighter ones down here, but don't do too many. And we need to really shift now and go a lot brighter. So we need to move into a lot of these tones. So top of the third column now, and we are going to make sure we get, you know, quite on it with the brightness. Now, what we can do in a second is we can actually sort of tuck in a Baceno layer in between these blades, which will allow you to then brighten up the ground and match this kind of colour. So if you're looking at this going, that looks a bit too bright for me, like that just like stands out of nowhere, we can sort of work with it in a second. So let's keep going. We can you know, see all the detail now, and then we can just kind of work with it and adjust colours in a second. So I'm going to tuck in some layers here. You can see I'm kind of like flicking down into this kind of cluster of leaves and blades, and then a couple of little taps, of course, for the details. And sometimes they genuinely are just scribbles, if I'm honest with you. Like they're little kind of flicks and, you know, wild, you know, just complete randomness. Let's do that over here a little bit more. And I'm focusing more so over on this edge, especially because this we can, again, touch up in a second, but also I want to kind of leave like sort of the corners a little bit darker here and there. You could add like one stray one like this, and it's getting a little bit more love, and it's, you know, jumping out a bit more of the scene. But all in all, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Lots of little flicks in and amongst our dark clusters as well, which we'll probably reintroduce in a second. But let's go to our colours and grab the yellow, middle of that same column, and then let's get some lovely, super bright ones right on the edge where the sun is just glistening onto this piece of grassy verge. There we go. A lot more up here too. I can go along some of my plants and just tap on them. And look at that. Sometimes it's just up and down, up and down, up and down. Lovely. Nice and bright on that edge, which, to be honest with you, I'm not sure we'd need to do too much to, but let's do exactly what I mentioned. Let's go ahead and we'll go down to the ground. We'll create a new layer. We'll go to our colours and grab the colour just above, which is the top of the third column. Brush Baceno. And then let's set that size to about 13%. And if you want to, you can just wiggle your pen. Now we need to make sure we are clipped to the land, so we'll clip it. You just want to wiggle your pen along that edge, and then maybe just introduce slightly brighter spots. Like I was super hesitant, so I've not added in a lot, but you can just tuft in some slightly brighter spots, which will kind of bury your blades of grass a bit more in the land, but you don't need to do too much, you know, very subtly, just like a few wiggles here and there. Now, one thing we will do is we'll grab, for instance, let's grab the colour here, bottom of the fifth column. We'll get that Baceno down to like a 7%, and we will just build in that kind of, like that little bit of that pathway almost, with some horizontal lining, and again, smudging if possible. You can just build in like a bit of a path just through like that. You can just see a little bit of a gap. Now, to be honest with you, I'm really happy with how it's turning out. I'm going to move over to this bush and do exactly the same kind of style. So we go to our layers at the top, we'll create a new layer, go to your colours, bottom of the third column. Brush wants to be Elphinstone again, 32%. And this time though, you're kind of focusing, yes, you want kind of like a few little flicks here and there, but you're kind of focusing more by tapping to introduce like petals, and you can create like leaf-like shapes throughout the whole of the bush. So this is like an exercise on this. Obviously you are in front of the tree. So if I draw here, I don't want to be doing that. I need to give the illusion, of course, it's in behind. So I'm tapping just to create lots of leaves and not doing too much. I'm leaving like my darkest areas as shadows because they'll look great. And then occasionally some like larger leafy like shapes. It's kind of sprouting out, will look lovely. A couple of little flicks like that, lovely stuff. And then let's go to our colours, bottom of the fourth column there. And again, little flicks, and focus them more like towards the edges, like where the lighting is. So like just up here, you can create lots of little flicks. You can create like the actual like sharp lines that we've been doing, but you can draw on top of some of your leaves and create like the bushy kind of shaping to it. So zoom out, you should end up with like a lovely little red bush. Now, this is a bit of an exaggeration on autumnal tones, to be fair, but you know, you get the point and you understand, like, you know, it's just meant to be a bit of fun. Now, it's very easy to also add in too much down here. So you can always reintroduce like dark tones. So you could create a new layer again and go to your colors and grab the top left of the palette. You could use the Piceno again, set that size down to 7%, and then maybe just like, you know, just tuck away at the path a little bit, or even, you know, just in behind here, you can just darken that up a bit more. Just sort of think about if like you had a 20% here, if you just want to kind of create a bit of a vignette almost, like you say, okay, well, this is so dense over here, let's darken it up in this corner, and let's maybe just randomly just dash in like the Piceno just to kind of break it up. I don't want you to do too much. I'm trying to give you the options, to be honest with you. Like underneath this bush, I'm going to darken that up so that that red clearly creates like a bit of an overhanging shadow on there. Lovely stuff. So we'll probably also apply that to the tree. So if I go to the tree and I tap on it and I alpha lock it, I'm going to go to my colors, top of the fourth column. Let's get that size down to around about 5 or 6%. I'll probably just tone that down in here where that bush is probably, you know, shadowing quite a bit. There we go. Just toning it down, adding in that kind of, you know, shadowish tone, because our light source is there. So let's then go ahead and start doing all the reflections as well. So let's go to this layer. It's the one below it. We want to set that back to normal. This layer here, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. Tap on the bottom one, grab your cursor, flip it vertically and drag it down until the end of the land touches. Tap on your cursor when you're done. Now, this particular part, you can smudge it in any way you like. You can even use like a motion blur. Motion blur will look fantastic. If you go to adjustments and you go to motion blur, drag left to right. Now I need to make sure my canvas is straight while I do this. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go left to right. And in fact, sometimes you can even do a top to bottom. Looks really good as well. Let's do top to bottom. Let's change it. Let's go 16 to 17% on a vertical smudge. Tap on your adjustments when you're done. And then you can grab your smudge tool. You can use Piceno, really, really small, like a 1%, and you can go, you can push straight through it horizontally, maybe a bit bigger than that. And let's make sure our canvas is horizontal. Now what we could do, of course, is go up to our actions and go to canvas, turn on the drawing guide, and it'll add the grid in. And if you go back to the layer and you tap on it and use the drawing assist, that means now we can smudge freely, horizontally, and not have to worry. So I can push out the color here, for example. I can push in and break that down. You can switch between like the Piceno and also the Elphinstone if you wish as well. But just make sure you get a good smudge on the end of the land as well. I think that's really important, really key as well. Now we can then go ahead and just tap on this layer and just bring its opacity down ever so slightly, down to like an 88%. So once you've done that, we'll go ahead and grab the land on the left-hand side. Now it's also connected. So what we'll do is we'll tap on the layer, go to your selection tool and turn off color fill because we had that on earlier. Go to freehand and just simply draw around this area of land and tap on the dot. Go to copy paste. It will copy and paste, and then drag that, of course, underneath. Grab your cursor, flip it vertically and drag it down. Now, of course, you've got two different kind of sizing of lands here. So we're kind of in a funny situation, but what we'll do is we'll drag it down until this point is pretty much connecting. And then we will go ahead and just grab distort and then just kind of angle that up a bit like this. And because it doesn't really matter necessarily, we'll do that. We'll tap on our cursor when we're done. So I connected the point. I'll grab my eraser. I'll just get rid of this little bit that's sticking its head up. And then if we do the same as we did before, we go to motion blur, drag down vertical fashion, maybe like a 18, 19%. And then again, go to the layer, tap on it and add the drawing assist. While you're here, also tap on it and bring the opacity down as well, maybe down to like 88% again. Grab your smudge tool and then again, just smudge, because now you can just push the color where you need it. So I can push it right over to that edge. I can really hack away over here and like push into it. I can push outwards. I can really like make my brush size a bit bigger, like a 3%. That's probably a little bit too big. Let's go 2. Push that. Oh, I'm trying to keep pushing the color across my scene a little bit. I can chop into there as well and push that back. Just keep hacking away at it, just as long as you get that lovely effect of like rippling water. It'll look fantastic. So just a little something like that. Now, of course, today's design matches up to the silhouette and style, should I say, of the rest of the scene. So if I turn off my drawing guide, the ripples, etc., all match that approach of the Biceno brush, but you would potentially use a different brush in future and maybe add in some other colours in here. But I want the water to be very white and misty, but you could go ahead and go to the layer for the water, tap on it and use the drawing assist as well. Go to your colours and grab the middle of the far right column, which is the sky colour, and then go to your brush. I'll probably change it to Elphinstone with a low opacity of like 60%, 32% size, and just draw in some more lines in here just to show reflection of lights and shadows caused by ripples. Lots of small little lines in here, and go all the way down towards the bottom of our scene here. Because you are using the drawing assist, it's so easy, so simple. Lovely, got that lovely ripples of water. So the only thing I want to now do with the reflections is just go to my layers. I want to make sure I'm in front of the reflections, especially on that right hand side, and create a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and just continue. I'm going to tap on the layer and drawing assist it. And then with the Elphinstone still selected, I'm just going to try and go along the edge of the land to give a little bit of kind of watery ripple looking effect, especially on top of like your shadowy like reflections. It'll make it look so much more like cohesive. You can also do the same over in the distance as well, but that's so light and faint you might not need to. So yeah, it's just an option should you want to. Now another option, should you want to, is the tree. So if we go ahead, and I've not collapsed any of my layers, so I've obviously got quite a few, but you can do so if you wish. If you swipe your tree to the left and duplicate it and then drag it underneath the land, this main piece of land here, grab your cursor and flip it horizontally. You can chuck another tree if you wish, like way up here in the top right of your scene. It might create a bit more of a framing for you as well, which can look quite good, especially if you tuck it right in behind the land. You get a little bit of that tree just poking its head in. Tap on your cursor when you're done. And by all means, grab your leaves as well for either one of the leaves and swipe it to the left and duplicate it, and grab your cursor, maybe flip it horizontal and just move it up into the top right. And then also grab your leaves as well, the colourful ones, swipe that to the left and duplicate it and grab them and move them top right. But make sure you kind of leave a gap and a bit of difference between the two sides. Now at this stage, honestly, is where I would just probably keep like detailing. I'd go to the top of my layers and create a new layer. I'd probably set the blend mode to add, but bring it right down to like a 25%. Go to my colours. I'll probably grab, for instance, the colour, the yellow tone, middle of the third column. Brush Elphinstone. I'll go maximum opacity. And I'll probably just like now start to, work in some new highlights here and there, like maybe even brighten this up. I could probably maybe go a bit brighter with the opacity of the layer. Yeah, maybe 39%. Just an occasional few like random caught bits of grass here and there that are a little bit brighter. Maybe like a leaf top there. And just purposely kind of picking out some of your details that you did earlier, but now making them a little bit brighter. And also maybe just finish off your details. Like take your time if you can, just to really just keep going for it. Layer on top of some of your reds, layer on top of some of your yellows. It should just make it pop that little bit more, but you don't want to go too mad with it. That's the problem, and that's my problem. So I'd add in like a few more taps of colour on the bush here. I don't mind if it goes a little bit astray and I get like a yellowy dot, that's fine. This corner here, I'll probably maybe add in the tiniest little bit on some of them, just as if they're getting a little bit of lighting, but I love the subtleness of that colour. And then the only thing I think I want to do is if I go to my colours and I go like top right of the palette, if we go to our brush, I'm going to go Biceno, set the size to about 7%. I just want to bring out my path a little bit more. And I know it's a bit of a dead-ended path, to be fair. It doesn't really go anywhere. But I do just want to kind of, maybe a 10% if it will go and stay. Maybe just a little bit bigger as it just runs through there, just as simple. And maybe I kind of allude to the fact it runs off to the right, maybe, kind of makes its way around the edge here. But even still, I'm really happy with how that looks. So As always, there's probably so much you can do and sit and tweak, but for now, I'm going to leave it as is. So I'm going to pinch with two fingers, go full screen before, and we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this another autumnal theme tutorial. As always, make sure to tag me in your finished creations wherever you decide to share them, like Instagram and Facebook. But come and check me out over on Patreon, because that's where I post 3 exclusive tutorials every single month to my Patreon supporters, and the catalogue sits at well over 150, nearly 160 at the time of recording. So with 3 added every single month, that catalogue just continues to grow, and it's only available on Patreon, not here on YouTube. And if you like this video here on YouTube, you'll love this one on the screen now. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.